Europe is facing a growing question about its ability to defend itself independently. Speaking to global leaders in Davos, Switzerland, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky issued a direct warning, emphasizing that the continent remains heavily reliant on the United States for its security. Europe needs to know how to defend itself, Zelensky said, underscoring concerns that decades of reliance on American protection may have left NATO allies unprepared for a changing security environment. His comments reflect a broader unease across Europe, where policymakers are confronting a reality in which traditional security guarantees cannot be assumed indefinitely. For decades, the U.S. has been the ultimate backstop for NATO, providing not only military forces, but also strategic leadership. While European nations have contributed troops, resources, and funding to international conflicts, the expectation that Washington would intervene in major crises has shaped defense planning across the continent. Zelensky's address highlighted the limits of this dependence, raising questions about Europe's readiness in a world where global threats are evolving. The tension between reliance and responsibility has been an ongoing debate within NATO. While European governments have steadily pledged additional defense spending, analysts note that much of the continent's military strategy has been designed with American support in mind. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte reiterated this point, describing the U.S. nuclear umbrella and the continued presence of American troops as the alliance's ultimate guarantor. End quote. Still, European leaders are increasingly aware of the need to take on a greater share of their own security. In recent years, countries such as Germany have launched special defense funds aimed at rapidly modernizing military capabilities. Germany's €100 billion fund, created after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, allows the country to rebuild its armed forces while minimizing immediate impacts on social programs. Yet experts warn that temporary measures like this will need to evolve into sustained long-term strategies if Europe intends to stand independently in a complex security environment. The concern is not limited to equipment and budgets. Running large-scale multinational military operations requires extensive experience and institutional knowledge, much of which has historically rested with U.S. military leadership. John Byrne, a defense analyst, explained that while European nations can purchase advanced weapons, acquiring the senior-level command experience necessary to operate them effectively cannot be done overnight. President Zelensky also drew attention to broader strategic questions, emphasizing Europe's reliance on the expectation that the United States will act in crises. He warned that if U.S. commitment were to change, European nations may lack the resources, cohesion, and political will to respond effectively. Europe still feels more like geography, history, tradition, not a real political force, not a great power, Zelensky said. To believe that the United States will act, that it will not stand aside and will help. But what if it doesn't? This question is everywhere in the minds of European leaders. Tune out about her. His remarks come amid a period of heightened scrutiny of NATO's structure and responsibilities. While the alliance remains a cornerstone of transatlantic security, there are growing debates over the balance of contributions, strategic priorities, and the allocation of resources. NATO has consistently encouraged members to meet agreed spending targets, but historical underinvestment in defense by some European countries has complicated the task of building fully independent operational capabilities. Political considerations also play a role. Across Europe, defense budgets compete with social programs, pensions, and public services, making it politically challenging to allocate additional funds to military modernization. Italy, for example, has warned that increasing defense spending to meet NATO commitments would place strain on an already tight budget. The United States has long shaped European defense planning. U.S. Presidents over the past decades provided clear assurances of support, which influenced NATO members' willingness to maintain smaller military forces and postpone modernization. Security analysts note that as threats from Russia and China have intensified, these assumptions are being tested. President Donald Trump has publicly questioned the unconditional nature of U.S. defense commitments, suggesting that NATO allies should contribute more substantially to their own security. He also drew attention with controversial remarks regarding the strategic value of Greenland and U.S. border security, highlighting the potential consequences if allies cannot rely on Washington to intervene automatically in global crises. These statements have contributed to increased European awareness of the need for both financial contributions and practical capability. European governments are now considering not just weapons procurement, but also training, command structures, and crisis response planning. The goal is to reduce the gap between the continent's current capabilities and the expectations traditionally anchored in U.S. support. The challenge for Europe extends beyond immediate budgets. NATO operations are complex, requiring coordination among multiple nations, integration of advanced technologies, and the ability to respond quickly in high-pressure scenarios. Analysts argue that without years of practical experience at senior levels, these capabilities cannot be replicated simply through financial investment. John Byrne highlighted that European countries lack the depth of institutional knowledge required to lead major coalition operations, a responsibility that has historically rested with American generals. This limitation reinforces Zelensky's warning that Europe may not be fully equipped to act independently in high-stakes security situations. The situation is further complicated by ongoing geopolitical uncertainties. Russia's ongoing assertiveness, the conflict in Ukraine, and the rise of new global powers have underscored the need for a clear and coordinated European defense strategy. At the same time, internal European politics, fiscal constraints, and the complexity of coalition decision-making continue to slow progress toward fully autonomous capabilities. As European nations contemplate their next steps, Zelensky's address in Davos serves as a stark reminder that reliance on a single ally carries inherent risks. While the United States remains central to NATO's deterrence, the evolving security landscape has prompted European governments to consider how to strengthen their forces, share responsibility more evenly, and maintain credible operational readiness. Temporary funding measures, equipment modernization, and incremental increases in defense spending represent important steps, but experts stress that sustained commitment and practical experience will ultimately determine Europe's ability to act decisively in a crisis. For now, NATO continues to rely on a combination of European contributions and American military presence. Zelensky's message reflects a growing sense of urgency. For Europe to secure its future, words and pledges must be matched by concrete capabilities, planning, and a willingness to take responsibility for its own defense. In Davos, the discussion over Europe's readiness continues, raising questions about the continent's long-term strategy and its ability to navigate a rapidly changing global security environment.